Heyo, Lloyd, Ruhl, aka MegaBlitzz. In today's video, we're going to be recapping a lot of the online tournaments that I've been playing in, with Kentucky happening, well, as the time of recording is, this weekend. This video will be coming out on that Sunday, so I'll be either A, at Kentucky, or on my way back from Louisville, Kentucky, from the regional there that weekend. And I really just wanted to recap some of the online tournaments that I've been playing in, since the last video I had made was a video about me winning my first online tournament playing Iron Thorns. And since then I've played about 6 or 7 more online tournaments and really have kind of learned more about the online tournament scene and different things that you can kind of do for online tournaments and how to prep for them or things of that nature. So I really wanted to take a moment to kind of talk about those in this video. So let's jump right into it. Alrighty, so here we are at kind of just my history for online tournaments, pretty much since I've been doing them, with my first one being on August 4th. Just kind of a smaller tournament with 29 people. I ended up playing Los Gudra, and that was where I kind of learned, to kind of recap, I made a video about this already, kind of like what I've learned in playing online tournaments and stuff, but just quick recap. So when playing in that tournament, I ultimately ended up dropping after just kind of having something not ideal happen to me. So round 1, played against Reggie Drogo, ended up winning that matchup. Then played against Lugia Archeops, which ended up doing a misplay, which cost me the game on there. And then played against Charizard Pidgeot here. And this is where I learned that screenshotting your kind of your victory page is really important. Whether or not my opponent had done this on accident or not, I'm not too sure. But they had reported that they had won the game when I actually had won the game overall, but didn't screenshot my victory page. So I learned really quick that you should always screenshot your victory pages and things like that. Once again, not too sure if my opponent had done it on accident or not. I would like to give them the benefit of the doubt and just assume that it was on accident, but learned very quickly that definitely screenshot your victory pages. And then just following that, I played in another tournament where I ended up taking first place playing Iron Thorns EX. Kind of daunt my Scavolian opponent. You cook Lugia, you have a good time into Chen Pao, cook another Lugia, and then ended up IDing into Top Cut, cook my Scavolian opponent again, play against Gardevoir, and had a pretty good time into that matchup. They didn't need a Guardy at the end and couldn't get to it, and then ended up hitting all heads on my Crushing Hammers, and kept them off Asada, my Raging Bone opponent. But overall, I once again had made a video about this as well, winning my first online tournament, so definitely check those other 2 videos out. But just wanted to recap them real quick. But overall, since then, I've learned a lot more in kind of how to prep for online tournaments and different things like that. First and foremost, anytime you play in kind of really any tournament, really, if you want to have a good result, play the deck you're most comfortable with. Even if it's not great in the meta, you're going to have a better time performing with a deck that you know and that you're comfortable with, as opposed to, okay, well, I'm going to pick up this deck for the very first time. I've played it twice, maybe 2 days, 3 days. I've only played 10 or so games with it, and I'm going to go into an online tournament and see what happens. You're not going to have a great time, and a good example of that is actually right here. I played this Mentis Fortis tournament, and I decided to play Dragapult Pidgeot. At that point, I've only played it for maybe a couple days. I was probably maybe 10 or so games in, and did not do great, unfortunately. So quick way to get myself down here. There we are. So played against Charizard Pidgeot, which is actually a good matchup for Dragapult Pidgeot, and just couldn't get there. Just kind of misplayed, didn't sequence the stuff I needed properly, which felt pretty bad. And then Iron Thorns is another also good matchup for Dragapult. It is a little more 50-50-ish or closer to 50-50 if you're playing the Pidgeot in the deck, which I was in this tournament. The new Ryuki Okada build, where it's not playing Pidgeot, is a little bit more hard. A little harder for Iron Thorns to deal with. But with that being said, like I said, I've only played the deck maybe 10 times or so, so I was still kind of learning the deck. And my deck list was pretty simplistic, really. It was just, 4-2-2 for Dragapult stuff. I played a 1-1-1 Dusknoir line, 2-2 Pidgeot. Nothing crazy. Sparkling Crystal, like, had a Briar in there for a little extra spice at the Crispit. So, like, nothing crazy going on with that. Just didn't really know the deck at all, which kind of led to my downfall, essentially, right? going 0-2 drop against two matchups that should be favored, as opposed to the other tournaments that I've been playing in, which here I got 34th out of 176 playing Lugia at the Pokedeck tournament, and we'll go down to my result here. So did not bad at all, right? Played against Galvantula, which is actually a pretty not great matchup because they hit everything for weakness. Ended up winning that matchup though. Played against Dragapult, which is pretty I would say favored for Dragapult or for Lugia most of the time, but my opponent was playing the kind of like Ryuki Okada build, and I was actually playing a kind of like own little like tech random stuff in here for my list, but ended up losing that. And I was like, all right, not too big of a deal. Put against Dialga Matang, won that. Lost to Iron Thorns because Lugia just can't really beat Iron Thorns unless you can like Weird Deer a bunch of like put a bunch of energies on Weird Deer and just punch, and then kind of finish with like a built up maybe Blood Moon Ursaluna or a built up like Cincino or something. It's not favorable. It's like you have like a 10% win rate. It's not great. So not super ideal. Put against Terapagos, won that, and then played against Gardevoir and won that as well. So finished 4-2 overall with, once again, like I said, finishing 34th out of 176, which felt pretty good overall. And ended up losing to the person who finished first, right? Like, I lost to the person who won the entire tournament, so ultimately didn't feel too bad about that. And then like 14th out of 60 at this Venom League challenge here. And this one was actually pretty cool because I ended up playing against Caterpie TCG, which if you guys don't know who that is, I'm going to probably butcher the name, Alessandro Cremsacoli. Kind of plays a lot of Pidgeot control and things like that. Finished in the top 4 at an IC, losing to Isaiah Bradner in Top Cut. So that was pretty cool. It was a super close game, super friendly. So that was a pretty cool thing that got to happen in this tournament. But once again, played the mirror match, did pretty okay. It's kind of just who can get set up faster, really. And then I think I was able to like hands or Raikou because I was playing Ruhl's list in this one. So I was able to like Raikou or Iron Hands or something. Their only Lugia V, which ended up winning me the game pretty quickly. But putting against Terapagos Dusknoir, I can't remember how that matchup went, but I remember being able to like KO or amp. I amped their Duskull to the beginning of the game, and then they attacked with Terapagos, and then I was able to like have a Cincino built up and just smacked it, and then they kind of conceded after that. One against Turbo Roy Moon. That's a pretty favorable matchup for you. Mist Energy is really helpful, even though Ruhl's list only does play one. But still pretty favorable. Played against Lugia twice back-to-back, lost the mirror match here, and then lost to Caterpie on this one as well. And then played against Hydrapple, Ogerpon, and ended up winning that. But once again, not too bad there. And then played at the last couple tournaments I've been playing Iron Thorns, with Iron Thorns or Lugia being kind of my pick to Louisville. I'm not exactly sure on what deck I want to be playing to Louisville. I'm kind of between playing Lugia, not Ruhl's build, kind of just a more standard Lugia list, or just kind of rolling up with Iron Thorns as my like, all right, if I hit Charizards and Lugias and Palkias, we're doing okay. So kind of between that. So you'll be able to see on Twitter, or potentially even I'll make a video depending on, things, and talk about Louisville, Kentucky, and things like that in the regional, and then we'll be able to figure out what deck I played, because as I'm recording this, I'm not too sure. I'm kind of leaning more towards Iron Thorns, as I've been kind of playing it more recently. Like I said, the last time I really played Lugia in like any sort of kind of consistently format was on September 29th, which as I'm recording this, it's the 10th of October, so I've been playing a lot more Iron Thorns, but anyway, finished 3-3 on this one here. Find me on 30th out of whatever people it was, and played against Palkia Dusknoir, which once again is a good matchup and just felt bad. I whiffed on trying to find Lost City and find boss off 2 Pokegears to KO their Froakie to just get it gone, and then whiffed on that. And I think I was also playing Pokemon Catcher in this list. Yeah, and then I couldn't find any Pokemon Catchers. I couldn't find boss off of my Pokegears, which felt bad. And they were like, okay, rare candy into Greninja, attach, smack. And I was like, yep, that feels kind of bad. So unfortunately, that's kind of the only thing you have to really do in that matchup. If you can Lost City their Froakie, you just win, like on the spot, I'm pretty sure. But was not able to do that, unfortunately. Played against Pidgeot Control, and at this point, I was only playing one Canceling Clone in my list. I was kind of going for more of like a Turbo E type build, and my opponent, you can see, is playing 3 Mimikyu, so they Mimikyu'd me out of the game, which did not feel great. And then played against Charizard Pidgeot, won that matchup. Played against Lugia, won that matchup. Played against United Wings, and won that one as well. And then played against another Pidgeot Control with 3 Mimikyus, and then quickly realized, okay, well, 3 Canceling Clone, or at least 2, is going to be a lot better. So, 3-3 in that tournament there, and then played in the Venom League Challenge. And that's kind of an interesting story about this one, actually, because I think I ended up dropping from the tournament, but the reason I dropped was because I live in Pennsylvania, in like the northwestern part, and we ended up getting our tornado warning, and it was like, the power was kind of like, not flickering per se, but it was gonna happen, I was pretty sure, which it ended up did. But we just had like a huge storm coming. There was a big tornado warning. Our phones were going off. Like get to the basement and stuff. So I just quickly dropped from the tournament after like finishing this the Dipplin matchup that I played in. I just dropped because I was like already not doing great. It didn't really matter. And my life and my dog's life and my girlfriend's life is a lot more important than finishing this random online tournament. So that's why I ended up dropping. I was going to finish it out, but put against Iron Thorns. The mirror match is really weird. It's kind of just who goes. I feel like who goes first, and then who can go. Okay, if they judge me, do they judge me into a good hand, or at least into another energy to attach, and then I can attach punch. So like, it's a really mirror match is really just like coin flippy and like, you know, are you hitting your crushing hammers or are you not, kind of thing like that. So. Put against Raging Poet Ogerpon, ended up winning that matchup. Played against Bonnet Gardevoir. My opponent did not do great. I think they ended up bricking a little bit. And they had like 2 Shuppets. And then I think maybe it was like something else on the bench. Maybe it was like Spiritomb, I think, or something. Maybe Monkey Dory. And I was just in a position where I was just like, okay, KO your Shuppet, lost idiot. KO your other Shuppet, lost idiot. And they couldn't really come back from that. Played against Regidrogo, lost that matchup. Everybody says that the Regidrogo Iron Thorns matchup is really good, but if they have Cologne and they can just play it and then go Legacy Star into a bunch of energies on their stuff and to take a KO on something, you just kind of lose, I feel like. So it actually doesn't feel as favored as I think it should. And then played against the Dipplin matchup, which I thought was kind of interesting. You just get cooked, really. If they can get set up and they have like Thwackies out and then they have like, you know, a Festival Ground out, and they're kind of able to like loop the Thwacky, find a bunch of pieces on top of, you know, hitting twice with Dipplin, it starts to hurt pretty bad. And you're only taking 1 prize. You have to take 4 knockouts, and Iron Thorns isn't really good at that, and you're not shutting off any abilities. So that didn't feel very great. But overall, you know, like I said, dropped from the tournament because a tornado warning happened. And then just recently, I played in the Jefferson Gym Tuesday Night Standard Tournament here. And finished top 16, which felt pretty good. Went 4-1. Played against Regidrogo, which once again, I still feel like everybody says the matchup's good. I don't think it's that great. Like I said, he was able to like go Temple of Sinnoh, and then I removed Temple of Sinnoh with Lost City, and then the next turn they went Evolve, Ultra Ball, discard. I think it was like Dragapult and like Kyurem or something else into find Regidrogo V-Star, Evolve, Canceling Clone, Legacy Star, put a bunch of energies, and just punched. And I was like, okay. And the matchup can go okay if you can like just hit some of your crushing hammers. It's not too bad. But if you don't hit like any crushing hammers, you just lose. And it feels kind of bad. Ended up losing to them. Played against Arceus. This deck was kind of interesting. Played against Arceus Machamp VMAX. My opponent just ended up not showing up, actually, so I ended up getting kind of a free win there. But I feel like I just win the matchup unless you can go, like, Trinity Charge into a bunch of fighting energies onto your Machamp, and then you have to evolve your Machamp, because Machamp VMAX says you have, what, G-Max Chi Strike for 240, which you hit for weakness. So I feel like it's not super favored, it's probably more 50-50, but you don't have your Starbirth ability, so it might be a little harder to find into the pieces that you need and things like that. But I thought it was a pretty cool deck list that they had played. Just unfortunately, they didn't show up to the thing. They played against Raging Bolt Ogerpon. They bricked really bad. They started Ogerpon and couldn't find anything else. And then I just punched Ogerpon twice and then won. Put against Great Tusk Mill was actually kind of an interesting matchup. I almost lost, actually. But they ended up I think, misplaying in my opinion, because in their deck list, they had Mawile in their list for the Tempting Trap, which says during your opponent's next turn, the defending Pokemon can't retreat. During your next turn, the Pokemon takes 90 more damage from attacks. But what they could have done is I had one boss left in my deck, and my list, I believe I'm playing 3 bosses orders in this list, and I had one left in deck. So if they just, instead of trying to Tempting Trap and letting me top deck a bunch of stuff, because I had less cards in deck than them, so they eventually will mill me, sure, but I had energy on my Iron Thorns in the active, and I just didn't want to attack into the Mawile and then just have them be able to, like, mill me at that point. I wanted to be able to get rid of the Great Tusk. Or no, sorry, I was able to, like, I had Penny is what I had in my hand, so I could go Penny the turn before pickup, put the one up there that had energies, and then I just needed to find boss, which I ended up, like I said, they just Tempting Trapping and kept doing that, and I just, like, drew into boss. I was like, boss, pull up Great Tusk, smack for 140, win the game. So had they just tried to mill me, they actually might have won instead, but decided to go for the Tempting Trap play instead, which I ended up losing then the game. And then played against Lugia Archeops, and yeah, like I said, it's a pretty good win for you if you can just hit well enough into your, like, as long as you can get somewhat set up, even like 20% set up Iron Thorns, you usually can win the matchup. The entire deck of Lugia is based on abilities, and you hit everything for weakness, and it's really unfavorable for them. But, oops, I do not want to turn on notifications. So, like I said, overall, the most important thing I learned is if you're going to play in an online tournament, the best way to prep for it is just play a deck that you know. Play a deck that really just you kind of are comfortable with. And if you want to test, take it to the ladder. You can play in an online tournament, sure. But for me, what I've learned is it didn't work out, right? I was playing Dragapult Pidgeot just a little bit. And I ended up going 0-2 drop. And then I was playing decks that I was a little bit more familiar with. Things like Lugia and Iron Thorns. And started to see a little bit better results. You know, 30th out of 87, 33rd out of 64, 16th out of 92, 14th out of 60, 34th out of 176, 1st out of 57. You know, Lost Guja was a little bit different from my first time playing an online tournament, but it is like, the things that I can learn is just make sure you're screenshotting your stuff. Make sure that you're confident in the deck that you're playing, at least, especially if you want to succeed in these online tournaments, because you can get rewards. You know, I've only gotten 1 reward, but, you know, for the Gnome Gardens Tournament 5, I ended up earning a bunch of codes going 1st out of 57. So, like, the most important thing that I could always just say is just play a deck that you know if you want to succeed. Screenshot your victory pages, and sometimes the client is not ideal and you have to restart the game a bunch of times, but I just really wanted to catch up on kind of just the online tournament stuff, kind of re-talk about it, talk about what I've learned, talk about just comfortability stuff, how to prep for it a little bit more, and make sure you set aside time too. The most important thing is setting aside time, because some of these do take a while. Even the Jefferson Gym ones, they're pretty short overall. It's best of 1, 30-minute rounds, 5-minute check-in timer, 5 rounds, no top cut, and that's it, right? So you're playing 5 rounds, and even then, we started at 8:30, so you're not finishing till about 11 o'clock, and with a 5-minute check-in timer, you got to add on about half an hour. So I don't think I finished this tournament until like 11-ish, 11:15-ish. So you got to make sure that you're always kind of setting aside time for these tournaments, especially some of the bigger ones too. You know, like the Gnome Garden one, it's 5 minutes, Swiss rounds, best of 1, and then you go to a top cut. So it was like, okay, well, we got to round 4, and then had to, you know, I won that, played, you know, ID'd this, so I got a break here, but then you go to top cut and you have to play your top 8 match, then your top 4 match, then your finals match, right? And those are best of 3 50-minute rounds. So you really got to make sure you're setting aside time to actually play in these events, because they do take time. Some, not so much. You know, like I said, the Jefferson Gym ones, I'm gonna start trying to go to those a little bit more, just because they're fast, they're quick. You know, it's five rounds, best of 1, 30 minutes. I can set aside 2-3 hours and play in the tournament, maybe win some codes, and that's great. But yeah, so that's all I can really think of right now about just how to prep for online tournaments and what to be doing. So if you're gonna join the content I've been making stuff for in the channel, don't forget to leave a like, smash the subscribe button. I would appreciate it. And I'll see you all in the next one. Peace!